Alright guys, so I'm back with another video in this series. So in today's video I'm going to be talking about pose drivers. Now I'm by no means an expert on pose drivers, but I'll at least be able to help you understand them more than anyone else has attempted to. So we'll go ahead and get started. First off, there's only been 5 videos released on pose drivers over the past 7 or 8 years, which is why I decided to go ahead and do a video on this to show you guys how to do it. Now, as far as metahumans, you really don't need to do that. I'll actually explain to you why he looks like he needs one. But that's basically because I do not believe by default these are even assigned pose drivers. There is a pose driver in here. So if I open this up and I go to asset details and I search for pose, let's see. Oh, post process, my bad. Yeah, so you'll see that there's nothing assigned here. But if you go to the, and I think that's because actually because of the fact that these are the game ready ones. I don't really know. I haven't messed with the game ready ones that much, but this is this should be a game ready one, and it has one. Okay, so I guess it's just these templates. These templates just don't have them assigned to them by default. Now, so there's one thing to note with these post-process animation blueprints. Once you've assigned them, they're always on unless you disable them. And that can be a problem when you start making animations like this, because if you don't key this to be disabled right here on this mesh, on the skeleton mesh, if you don't key that to be disabled, then it'll bake that into the animation. And when you have that in game, when you have that being applied in the game, those bones end up getting offset twice, because it was offset when you baked it, and then it got offset again when you applied it post-process animation blueprint. So why do they call these post-process anim blueprints? And why are they assigned inside of here? They're assigned inside of here for convenience. They're called post-process anim blueprints because they get applied after the main animation blueprints are processed. And so in your character, let's just go over here and we'll open up a character blueprint. So in this character blueprint, I have an animation blueprint right here assigned, and this drives the locomotion. Now, every animation blueprint has an output pose. So when this finishes being processed, the final pose is output right here. So the post-process animation blueprint that's assigned to the skeletal mesh will get executed after this one is executed. And the input pose right here is where that other one's output pose comes in. And so this input pose will be the actual animation blueprint's final output pose. So that's basically how that works. I hope that it helps explain it to you. Now, when you're setting up these post-process anim blueprints, you can plug in an animation for testing to see how it'll look. And you'll see in this one, when we're applying a post-process, you'll see it fixes that problem. Now, like I said, for the metahumans, you're not really going to need to do this. And I can actually show you how to assign this. So if we go over to this, this mesh, this is the actual skeletal mesh, not the skeleton. Under the skeletal mesh, we have an asset detail, and it'll probably be docked down here on the bottom or up here somewhere. I have mine docked on the side. And if we just press that and we assign that, you'll see that it's already running. If we come back in here, you'll see he kind of bugged out. Yeah, so it had a negative effect on this, but if I close that and reopen it, it might fix it. No, it doesn't. Okay. So for whatever reason, it did not like that, but I can disable it right here and you'll see it automatically starts working again. Yeah. Okay. That might have something to do with these template versions. Maybe that's why they didn't have one assigned to them. Let me just let me actually see here before I disable that. Oh, yeah, so it's working. This is the post process. Oh, my bad. Okay, I understand why it wasn't working now. Yeah, so that was totally my fault. So there's nothing wrong with that. The reason why it's not working is because I don't have the input pose here, which means it can't receive anything. It's just going to stick them into this pose and override whatever was last processed. So now that I've done that, I should be able to, if I can find the animation again. It's up here. So if I open this now, yeah, it should work. That's just a bug. You'll see. And so now with this post-process Anim blueprint, you'll see that looks a lot better. Now, not all of the characters are going to have sophisticated corrective bones like this does. For example, the character creator, it doesn't have these wrist support bones right here. It only has these twist bones, and they're not as effective at correcting these wrist problems as actual dedicated wrist bones would be. So I've never actually weighted those bones before, so I don't actually know what the best way is to go about creating corrective bones on an actual skeleton when you're creating the mesh or weighting it or rigging it or whatever. But I can explain to you how you can make use of them and set up pose drivers for them. So starting off, if I just select this pose driver here and I scroll down, you'll see it has a pose asset assigned to it right here. You might have accidentally graded some of these before in the past and you were confused as to what their purpose was. Well, this is what their purpose is. You'll see a bunch of pose names down here and that might confuse you, and they have weights. But if you go to the asset details, you'll see there's a source animation. So the additive section and the source section are the only two sections you should really worry about. There's not much going on here other than that. The source animation is actually the animation that we use to create this. So if you go to create asset, pose, asset, and current animation, then it'll create one of those like what you've seen. And right now I have this set to step. By default, it was set to linear. If you set it to step, it won't interpolate between 0 and 1. It'll just snap from one pose to the next, which is why we see this. So if I come over here to, if I browse to this and I open this up in a new window, you'll notice something here. You'll notice that there's 4 frames here. You see this is frame 4, the very last one. And you'll see that there's 5 right here. So actually there's 5 frames, not 4. 0 is the first frame. So frame 0 is actually the default, that's this one. Frame 1 is clavicle L forward 30. Frame 2 is clavicle L back 30. Frame 3 is clavicle L down 20. And frame 4 is clavicle L up 40. And you'll actually see that the clavicle is rotating up and down in each of these. So this is the default pose right here where it's in a neutral position. One, you'll see it, if we come over here to the side, you'll see it rotates forward 30, back 30, down 20. So you'll see it's up and then it's down 20, and then it's up 40. So that's the default, and that's up, let's see, that's the default, and that's up 40. So that's how it works. They named these themselves. You can press F2 and rename them to whatever you want. And so if we come over here, that's the up 40. And I come behind it. And if I start giving that one weight, you'll see it goes up 40. And for this one right here, which is down 20, if I start giving this weight, you'll see it rotates down 20. And the same applies to all these other ones too. So that's how those pose drivers work. Now let me explain to you how they actually work when they're being driven inside of a pose driver or a Post Process AnimBP on a pose driver. So you'll see we have a pose asset. You can assign the pose asset. If you come up here, these pose targets, those are the actual things inside of there that I was showing you a second ago. If I just double click that, you'll see that's what you were looking at. Let me just put that right there. By default, it doesn't automatically fill these out for you. You have to go to Tools and copy all from Pose Asset, and then you'll see all these names right here with the numbers in front of them. And then one of them may or may not have weight. Now, I wouldn't worry too much about this right here. You can change these so that 0 goes to this one, so on and so forth, but you're probably not going to use that. I don't really see much of a use case for it. There may be one somewhere, but anyway. So these are the pose targets, and these are the actual target angles. All right, so sorry about that. Okay, so let's see where we're at. So, yeah, so these are like local rotators, which will rotate it around the source bones. The source bone. It'll rotate it around the source bone. If I just undo that, let me. There we go. There we go. Yeah, so anyway, let me just copy this and then I'll show you. Yeah, so you'll see that we can rotate it around that. And the scale, I think the scale is context sensitive, so in some cases the scale can actually make the cones themselves smaller. At least I've seen that before. But for our general setup, what we're doing is we're going to be driving these corrective bones. So how does this work? You have your source bones. That's the bone that it's going to be driving these bones. So these only drive bones, these are the bones that are being driven. So for example, with let me give you a better example, a simpler example. So if I go to the hand, you'll see that if I come over here, you'll see that the hand right here, it's got these two it's got these two bones right here that help support the structure or the volume of the wrist during extreme poses. And those are the bones that are being driven by the hand. So based off the hand's actual rotational angle, it will offset these wrist outer and inner corrective bones. Now, not like character creator characters, they don't have those, I don't believe. I'm pretty sure they only have twist bones, unfortunately, but I'll show you how to set one up for those. They're not as effective at preventing volume loss in the wrist as these wrist corrective bones, but there's not a whole lot I can do about that. Unfortunately, that's something that character creator they'll have to upgrade their skeleton if they want better output like these metahumans have. So this RBF params, this is actually for the solver. This is actually what solves the positioning for those. And so there's two different solver types. There's an interpolative and an additive. So the additive, it'll apply a % of these additively over the top of this, but it kind of snaps. It's real snappy. Things can kind of snap into place if you don't set it up just right. There's probably some examples in here, but let's see. This guy's video right here, Ask a Dev, he's got a video that covers that solver, the additive solver type. If you want to go and check that out, I highly recommend that video. It's the only useful video I've actually found as far as pose drivers. None of the other videos I've ever found helpful. There's only a handful of them. So for corrective bones, you're mostly just going to use interpolative. You can read these tooltips to get a better understanding of that. Interpolative, it has a higher computational cost because we are interpolating the values. Additive does not interpolate the values, and so it requires a normalization step to be performed for smoother results. So the radius, that's the default radius for each target. And the targets, I believe, are these right here. Yeah, these are the targets. So that actually, this radius right here actually, I believe, may actually influence the radius of those. So let's go back over here, and I'm going to copy this one. And while we're looking at this cone right here, yeah, okay. So you'll see that's how you can actually give the cone a wider influence or a smaller influence. Like I said, when this green line right here is at the center of this cone in all three dimensions, then it will then that target will have this target right here, which is this cone. It'll have 100% weight. Right now, it doesn't have that. And in actuality, that may be a little misleading because these can actually still have a high weight or somewhat of a weight without that green line actually being inside of the cone. And I believe that has to do with your distance method. So your distance method, I believe, is what dictates how like the angle of the source bone influences that target. So the swing angle and the twist angle. Yeah, and so I've seen one with that uses quaternion in here too, but I'm not familiar with that. Yeah, so the fingers use the quaternion method. most of these other corrective bones are going to use the swing angle. If you were setting up a twist bone, it would more likely use the twist angle. So the twist axis, I believe, is only taken into account when our distance method is set to swing angle. I don't think it actually affects the twist angle method, but I could be wrong. When I set up my twist one, as I'll show you guys here in a little bit at the end of the video, I didn't have to mess with that twist angle axis. So, I mean the twist axis. Let's see. Yeah, so you'll see all these are gauzing and swing angle. Also, something else to note is this function type right here. This is how it interpolates. This affects the interpolation itself. Gaussian and linear are the only two I've ever seen used. I have not seen quaternion, cubic, or quintic used. The default, I don't know exactly what the default function is. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. Weight threshold probably will hardly ever be touched. Normalized method, it'll depend on the circumstances. So in this case, it's always normalized. And that's going to be most of these regular ones here. You'll see all these are set to always normalize. Yeah. The fingers are set to only normalize above 1. So I'm not familiar with their approach for the fingers. I may investigate this and do videos on it later. I will tell you this though, as far as in-game, for the most part, unless you're going to be getting up close and personal with the camera on your fingers, I would bypass this for your metahuman characters and not always do the finger one, because that is going, all these little pose drivers here are going to have a performance impact, which you probably don't want. So you could bypass it like this, or you could set up like a blend so that these are only blended into whenever you're doing a cinematic where you get close to the fingers. That would be my suggestion, but you guys can, handle that however you want. But that's just my thoughts on it. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's anything I'm missing. Yeah, so your drive source, for the most part, it's almost always going to be rotation. Even for the fingers, you'll see it's rotation. And drive poses is the output. But there are other use cases for this as well. You could actually drive the translation of the of the bones that you're driving rather than the rotation. And you can actually drive curves instead of poses. So those are your options there. That's how all that stuff works. So I think I've pretty much, okay, so the eval space, okay. Now for the most part, you're not going to be using this eval space bone. As you can see here on all theirs, they're all using the eval from ref pose. So they're evaluating this based off of the difference between the current pose and the reference pose. But you can also evaluate these in other spaces. I'm not going to go into that in this video either. I haven't really messed around with that, and I can't think of a good use case for that right offhand. But I'm sure there's probably alternative use cases for that outside of, say, corrective bones. There's probably a use case for that outside of corrective bones, but not with corrective bones. So let's go ahead and get started on setting one of these up. So you'll see I've already applied this to him. By default, these template metahumans don't actually have these assigned. This was actually assigned to the Kellen M medium normal weight body. So if you go into this, you'll see that under the if you go into asset details and search for post, you'll see this is the post process anim blueprint. I'm not sure if I've mentioned that in this video. I've restarted this video twice already, but I'll go ahead and discuss that. Basically, the post process anim blueprint, it gets applied after the character's blueprint. So this character right here, it has a blueprint right here. After this blueprint is processed, it'll output a pose. When this post-process anim blueprint gets processed, the last pose that was output by the character's animation blueprint will come into here, and then we'll start offsetting that based off of the current pose he's in. Okay. Now you don't have to have these pose drivers set up on a post-process anim blueprint. You could have them set up on the main anim blueprint. It would probably be a little bit cheaper, because running a second animation blueprint will create a hit on the game thread, because the game thread has to initiate all the worker thread work. So if you have other threads and they have to do work, the game thread has to initiate that work on those threads. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that, but basically that's how it works. So anything that happens is going to have some effect on the game thread, even if you are offloading it to a worker thread in such a case as an anim graph. So keep that in mind. So what I did actually with this guy right here, why am I in so with this guy right here, I went into his asset details and I searched for post, and this is a skeletal mesh, guys, not the skeleton. It's a skeletal mesh. That's where you'll find the post process anim blueprint. I assigned the Kellen one to this guy, this template right here. That's the reason why he now looks correct in this pose, whereas before, I'll just go ahead and show you. Before it looked like this. Oh, so the reason why it looks like that, why it's messing up right there. Okay, I thought I had this connected. Okay. Maybe just recompile that. Yeah, there we go. So there's something you should know is when you assign one of these post-process anim blueprints to a character and you go to modify his animation, if I were to save this like it is, it's going to cause problems. Why? Because this post-process anim blueprint is offsetting these bones, and when I save this, it's going to save those post-process offsets to this animation. And then when the post-process gets applied to this animation, it will have been applied twice, which will cause the arm to stretch out like out here, and it'll look really weird. You'll have some weird deformities where the elbow looks all pointy, stuff like that. So if you have one applied to your character, either remove it from his skeletal mesh while you're doing this, or when you go inside of here, you're going to have to go to you're going to have to go inside of here, and you're going to have to disable the post-process anim blueprint and key the frame. And you'll now see that we have a frame here keyed where this is disabled. And so you'll see that it looks bad right here, but when this post-process anim blueprint is applied during runtime, it'll correct it to look like that. Okay? But you don't want to bake those offsets into the animation because it'll cause problems. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So I know that was a long explanation, but anyway. So we're going to go ahead and come out of here. And what I'm going to do, let me just do it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to this guy right here. I'm going to come browse to his skeletal mesh right here. I'm going to drag that out. Actually, let's not do it like that. Let's do it this way. I'm going to go into the skeletal mesh. I'm going to go to create asset, create animation, current pose. This is going to create a pose. This is going to create an animation where he's in this pose. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this under, I'm going to create a new folder actually, pose driver. And I'm going to call this okay. So now you'll see something looks wrong here. Okay, so yeah, let me explain. Let me go ahead. I'll fix this. So you'll see there's this weird problem around here, and you'll see that these corrective bones are all in the wrong place, and it's causing deformities. So I'll go ahead and explain that to you. It basically goes back to what I was telling you about disabling that when modifying animations. If you do not disable that and you modify the animation, you'll get problems like this during runtime when these are applied a second time. So when I created that pose, it baked that post-process offset for each of these corrective bones into the pose. And now, whenever this post-process anim blueprint is active and running, you'll see it's running. It's going to apply it a second time, and it's going to cause these problems. So if I disable this, this is what it would normally look like if these corrective bones were in their default poses, and then we applied the post-process anim blueprint. But because we baked it in, now you'll see they get applied twice, and it offsets things in funny ways. So I'm going to have to delete this. And I'm going to have to disable this, and we'll try creating it again. Oops. Okay, it still did it. Let's let me pay more attention to what I'm doing here. Yeah, so I think we're just going to have to clear this for now. It may actually be because he's sharing the skeleton with the metahuman base skeleton. That might actually be what's causing this. Let's see, we're about to find out. Yeah, okay, that's what it is. Sorry, guys. Metahumans they have a lot of oddities when you're working with metahumans, but basically the anatomy right here differs. So I'll show you how to do this. Instead of doing it from the skeletal mesh, do it from the skeleton. And in order to prevent those, well, actually, I don't think you have to worry about that with their control rig, because I believe when you're baking stuff through their control rig, I think it automatically corrects that stuff for them. But in this case, I need to do this from the actual skeleton. I keep doing that for some reason. And so now you'll see that it looks right. And if we come over to the preview and we change this to, say, male, medium, normal weight, and we choose this guy. Okay, I still think it looks weird. Maybe that's just me. Yeah, maybe it's just me. No, I don't think it's me. I think it actually looks weird. I think something went wrong here. Yeah. So now it looks right. It's these translation retarget settings, guys. That's what's causing that problem. I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, these translation retarget settings, I don't like them. These default ones that they have set up in here, they're really not optimal for getting the best results. As you can clearly see, it's causing all kinds of weird oddities. Now, when you're doing the IK live retargeting, the IK retargeter ignores the translation retargeting settings. In case any of you are wondering, it actually does ignore those. So, yeah, I'm just going to leave this like so. I don't bake this to the, actually, no, I don't want to bake that to this. Okay. I'll explain to you why. It's because there's no controls for these corrective buttons in there. So I'm going to unlink that and I'm going to bake. I'm going to edit with FK control rig. Yeah, cool. So you'll see that those translation retargeting settings don't affect this negatively right here, which is a really good thing because that would have caused all kinds of problems. So I'm going to create an additive section right here to this. And in actuality, I'm actually going to expand this out 3 frames. So I'll just leave the first one as the default. I'm actually just going to delete that for that frame right there because we actually only need that first frame on the base track. And so what I actually want is I'm just going to say hand. Now you'll have to create one of these for each side of his body. You could also save these as poses and then mirror paste them onto another one. Or you could probably just mirror. You could probably just create a mirror of this animation and use that. But I'd probably recommend doing each of these separately just to be safe. So the first thing I might do is, first off, I want to do snapping because I want perfect angles on this. So I'll just do, let me do 45 degrees. So let me actually do this first. Sorry, guys, I'm losing it. First off, you want to key the frame on frame 0. Otherwise, because this is an additive track, anything that's not keyed will be reset, will be influenced by that key. So I want to create a key there too. And so on the first one, I'm just going to rotate it 90 degrees along the Z. And then I want to say twist, lower arm, twist 1 is likely going to be the one that we want. This probably won't have, this probably won't help much. No. Okay. So that's not actually going to help in situations like this. What it will help with though, the twist bone, it will help with, let me just reset that. It will help with this. So we'll do 90. Yeah, I'm just gonna do a pretty basic one here. You can add more rotations and corrections in here if you want, but I think just having 2 in here is probably going to be enough. Or we could do it. We could rotate it in the opposite direction too. Yeah. So we'll have 4 poses here. So I actually want to extend that one more frame. And I'll go ahead and key these frames. And so that's 90. That's 180. And we'll do 90 this way. Not sure what's going on here with these fingers. Were those fingers? Okay, that's a weighting problem on the actual on this actual mesh. That's not something I did. Actually, those twist bones can actually help with these too, these angles. So I'll do a 45. Okay, that should be good. So now I just need my twist, lower arm, twist. And so what we're going to do is we're going to key these as well. Same reason. Also, the reason why I'm doing it on an additive track is because I can always delete the additive track if I need to. So I'm going to rotate that 45 degrees right there. That's probably going to be about as close as we're going to get. I can try reducing this. But you'll see as we twist, you'll see the middle of the arm starts losing volume. So we have to find a good median. I think 45 degrees on the twist for a 90-degree turn on the wrist is probably good. It's probably going to be good. So let's go back to 45 snapping. Let me try going back down to 5. Yeah, so you'll see the limitation we have right here with this. You know, there's only going to be so much you can actually do here. So I'll keep that at a 90-degree rotation for that. Let me see if modifying this one will help for this situation. There we go. That's probably going to be about as good as we're going to get it. That's 15 right there. That's really pushing it. You can see that's starting to collapse. If you do this too much, though, you'll see we'll start getting some oddities around the around this right here. Probably about as good as we're going to get it for such a... I'll go ahead and push it to 75. But we're really pushing it now because you'll see it's starting to do some funny stuff right there and right there. And so this is the 90 degrees in the opposite direction. And that one should be easy to recreate. So we'll just rotate this 45 degrees. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to correct this at all right here, to be honest with you, just using the twist bone. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to. No. Okay. You'll see if you try to rotate it along any other axis, it does some pretty funky stuff. Yeah. So it looks like for stuff like that, it's just, yeah, there's nothing we can do about that. Not with the twist bone. Now, honestly, if you have these wrist bones right here, use those. Don't use the twist bone. I'm only showing you how to do it with the twist bone because that's just well, with character creator characters, that's, you don't have those wrist corrective bones, and you don't have these corrective bones right here either, which is why with the character creator characters, you'll end up having to use the twist bones, and you only have the twist O1L and the twist O2L on the character creator characters. So yeah, anyway, so you'll see that's how that works. I kind of overdid it on the 180 degree twist. It does look noticeably bad right there if you compare them to the other ones. I mean, you can kind of try to dial that back and allow some deformity right here to try to prevent that. But I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So I mean, there's limitations to what you can do here with this. With these twist bones, that is. So I'm just going to go ahead and save that, and that should be good. So we have our default pose, and we have these other angled poses, and that should be good enough. That's going to be the only corrective stuff that we'll be able to do using only twist bones. So I'm not going to do it for the other hand. I'm only going to show you how to do it for this one. Now, I'll have to look into this. I don't know why it's baking these, all these curves, but you can go all the way down to the bottom and shift click and then delete or press delete on your keyboard. you don't want all those curves in there. It will have a performance impact. Just having those curves in there causes them to be evaluated. And it has a really big performance hit. So I'm going to go ahead and let's see. I'm just going to copy this right here. I'm going to go to create animation, create pose asset, current animation. And then I'm going to set, you can also do this, paste that in there. And now you have this, and I'll call this the male and so now you'll see this. Let's see. Yeah, so there's a problem here because of that translation retargeting stuff that they have on there. It's causing this right here whenever this gets applied, but it's working properly. I probably shouldn't have made that for this guy specifically like I did. To be honest with you, I probably should have just made this for the base skeleton. Yeah. But I think it would have had the same problem. I think it would have caused the same problem. I think I need it to be reference pose. Let's see. Okay, no, that works. So that's the good thing about having a default pose, is I can make it additive based off the default pose, and now you'll see it doesn't cause that problem. This is actually wrist right 180. Actually, I don't guess it has a direction, does it? And then this is wrist left. So now what we'll do is we'll create an animation blueprint. And we'll create it on the base skeleton. I'll just call it AnimBP twist correction. And if I go into the preview asset, I can change this to the male, medium, normal weight, so that we can see the entire body, not just the skeleton. I'll drop an input pose and a pose driver. And at the bottom here, we'll assign this pose asset. And let me just actually let me copy this one. This is that cabinet pose, and it's at the correct time on that cabinet pose. So I'll just copy that over. And you'll see right now it's not correcting anything. That's because I haven't set it up. If we go over to, after you've assigned the pose asset, you can come over here to tools and copy all for pose asset, and you'll see all these right here. And you'll see we're getting a warning because we don't have any source bone assigned. The source bone is going to be the hand L right here. And we're going to evaluate from the reference pose. Now we don't want this to be additive, and we don't want it to be swing axis. We want it to be a twist axis, and we want it to be interpolative. And you can probably try the automatic radius, but it'll depend. Sometimes the automatic radius isn't going to be very useful. And we're going to always normalize. And you'll see right now, we don't have any weights right here. Yeah, so I'm going to have to do this manually. I think we want that to be gauzing. Yeah, we want it to be gauzing. With linear, you have to treat linear a little differently. That's why we're getting the error there. Oh, well, I don't have the drive. Okay, that's why it was. Okay, my bad. So we need these twist bones here because we're driving both the twist bones. We're only driving the second one in one of the poses, but okay, so this I think is a bug. I may have to recreate this. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's a bug. Actually, let me try this before I do that. Let me, yeah. Huh. It's an invalid or duplicated target. Yeah, I think that's a bug, guys. So let me just do this again. Sorry. Always normalize. Twist axis. We want to keep this at Gaussian. If you switch that to linear, it may do what you just seen it do, and where it throws an error and it thinks things have been duplicated. Okay, you may have to give me a second on this because I'm not exactly sure why it's doing this. Yeah, I might have to get back to you on this. For some reason, it's it shouldn't be doing this. Okay, I'll be right back, guys. Sorry. Okay, that was short. I don't know why, but so I did this before. I deleted these, and then I recreated them and then compiled them, and it didn't work, but this time it did for some reason. So yeah, anyway, that has to be some kind of weird bug. Hopefully they fix it eventually. Now I might actually just leave that at the setting that it chose, the 72. I didn't choose that. I don't think I chose 72. You can watch the video. You'll probably see. But yeah, so now you'll see that the wrist looks. It doesn't look bad now. Even though that we're only using twist bones. Now you'll see this one still looks bad because we haven't made any corrections to that one. But yeah, if you need to, you can rotate these cones around and adjust the radius. But the 2 times I've set this up so far for twist bones, I have not had to do that. It did it for me. And I think that has to do with the pose asset. I think if you do the pose asset right, I think you won't have to. But I could be wrong. You know, there may be situations where you still have to manually rotate those. So, you know, take that with a grain of salt. You'll see here, though, I set this up and it's working. So, yeah. And so we'll just go ahead and turn this into this, and I'll go ahead and hide the, and you'll see, look, it doesn't look bad. It's maintaining its volume pretty good. Now when the hand bends backwards, it still does that it still looks bad on the back side of it. Like right here, but that's because I'm only using twist bones. I'm not using those wrist corrective bones. Like I said, those wrist corrective bones are going to be more appropriate. But if it's the case that you only have twist bones to drive, then, you know, it'll help. You know, as you can see here, it helps quite a bit as far as this side of it goes. But there's limitations, so just keep that in mind. Anyway, you guys, I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you in the next video.